What do you do that effectively in your world is world class? For what it's worth, you have customers. They're working with you because you are the best at something. What is that? Once you know something, you stop learning. We've heard the phrase culture eats strategy for breakfast. If we don't have the culture right, the rest of the organization is not going to be completely effective. How do you get there? You cannot grow if you don't have process, if you don't know your culture, and you don't have values and those kind of things. They have to be in place because ultimately those are the things that people grab onto that create the one organization idea. It goes back to people and habits and culture and what you're trying to find. You're here because I think, like me, you've been struggling to trying to figure out what it is and how it works. I mean, culture is about habits, and yes, you can change culture. Changing culture is like, it's like a revolution. When you have a revolution, you take over something and you do two things. Number one, you take over the power, the gun, and the other thing is you control communication so that people only hear things that you want them to hear, and they do not hear things you don't want them to hear. So once you start to figure out what are the major cultural behaviors that we need to be successful, then you look for the behaviors that aren't consistent with that and somehow drive them out. So that's how you make culture change happen. Culture, as a definition, is values plus behaviors. Behaviors I get. Behaviors are what you see. They're what you just finished writing down. Values, now what are those? And say, okay, what do they really mean? And many of them have multiple interpretations. And culture is determined by you. One is attitude. For what it's worth, nobody can ever come to work with a bad attitude. You are not allowed to. Any bad attitude in any kind of work situation becomes a bad apple that infects all the rest. It de-energizes everybody that entire day, and you're not productive either. You have to be positive. When these things are developed and articulated and they're on the wall and we talk about them, then people know it anyway. I mean, you don't even have to remind people because people are already doing it. That's the cool thing. Nobody wants to work with an organization that isn't going to concretely be doing things to make me better. We're going to do what we can to develop you so that you're as cutting edge as we can keep you. Having a development capability as a piece of what you do is really critical. Remember that we're not creating something new in most of these behaviors. We're simply using a device to pull them out of people's head, get them down on a flip chart, get some agreement with them, and go. And people's personal experiences is always what creates reality. When you talk about, great leaders are great storytellers. What are those stories? I mean, it's really an important point because ultimately, one of the criticisms of this, for what it's worth, my people who have done this, half a year into it, they're already enthusiastic. But it really does seem to energize people because if you're larger, you got something that you can actually tie into. If we do these things, I am really enhancing the organization. If you look at the 3 or 4 or 5 things that a leader is supposed to do, one of them is obviously setting strategy, and another is defining values/culture. So they're equal. I mean, they're there. I mean, they're critical. The culture really should become the foundation that supports the strategies. If you look at the doing part on differentiating, that's clearly related to what we're delivering from a strategic standpoint to our customers. If you don't have culture consistent, and have finally gotten there, people do what they think is their own interpretation of how they should operate, and things don't get done well. And say, okay, what is fun? Is it you get to wear jeans or you eat the pizza or whatever? And after an hour of discussion, they said at the end of the day, if you want a person to walk away and say that was a fun day, their interpretation was I was doing fulfilling work for the organization and I got recognized for it, which happened to be the 2 top things from a motivation standpoint as well. The reason we exist as a program is obviously to take smaller organizations who don't have an advisory board and don't have mentors and are kind of lonely to give them a support capability. We need people who are mentors who are fairly broad in their understanding, and it's nice if they're part of a larger organization so that if the person wants to know more about accounts payable or receivables or IT or HR issues or something like that, that there's somebody that they can talk to within that organization. And we go through this process in the fall. And anyway, if people who have an interest in being a mentor on behalf of your organization, we'd appreciate that. Most people are waiting for leadership. The good companies have culture by chance. Great ones have culture by design. You can be great. Thank you.